You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. We are talking with Diane Lang, who's a therapist. She's an adjunct professor of psychology and an author of a couple of books, including Creating Balance and Finding Happiness and Baby Steps, The Path from Motherhood to Career. Diane, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I was looking forward to it.
Actually, it's quite something having Diane on the show because recently we spoke with her co-host of the Expat Show, which is on a WABC affiliate in the Northeast. That was Tay Aguirre. If you missed that show, you should download the podcast at goldsteinongelt.com or check out the YouTube. Diane, pleasure to have you. As a therapist, I'd like to understand some of the work you do specifically as it relates to money. And one of the expressions that people talk about a lot is they say, when there's no money, love flies out the window. Where does that come from, and why do people say that?
Well, you know, honestly, as a therapist, one of the things I'm seeing here in the United States is our recession started about 2008, and ever since then, I have to say I have clients coming in with different issues, and one of them is unemployment stress. And after being unemployed for about 6 months or longer, depression starts setting in. And not only does that phase themselves, but it phases the whole dynamic of the family. So we're starting to see families have problems because of the stress. I mean, just statistically, 30% of children ages 7 through 17, which is elementary school straight through high school, said their stress levels are higher every year due to financial reasons. And I think parents sometimes don't realize that kids have the ability to become stressed out or to understand in a more complex way than parents see how finances affect them. So we're seeing a whole dynamic change just by the financial situation changing. So really I'm seeing a lot of stress in marriages because of finances, but it's also, again, affecting the kids and the whole dynamic of the family. So we're having a lot of family issues just due to financial stress.
So do you find that the incidence, let's say, of divorce is less when the stock market is high and unemployment is low than it might be in 2008, 2009?
Well, you know, honestly, we have a really high divorce rate here in the United States. It's 56% of 56% of marriages end in divorce, and that's a really high rate. So I have to say, I think that there's 3 reasons. One of them is finances, but the other reason is religion, believe it or not, and then the other one is how we raise our kids. So there's a lot of different reasons why divorce happens, but I have to say the finances do play a big role. And we're also seeing a difference in the gender roles. You know, we used to have a lot of stay-at-home moms and dads were the provider. That's no longer the case. And even moms who would love to be a stay-at-home mom are not having that option due to the recession. So now we have this whole thing of both parents are working full-time, and now who takes care of the whole, the household responsibilities, the household duties, and that becomes an issue at home because what's happened is women tend to take over the blunt of all the work. So they're working full-time, they're taking care of the kids, and they're doing more household chores, which causes a lot of stress because they're stressed out and overwhelmed just by all the responsibilities they have. So we're seeing a lot going on, but I don't know if I could specifically put it towards finance just because we do have such a high rate of divorce here to begin with.
Mm-hmm. So when you speak to people, do they say, I want to divorce my husband or my wife just because either he doesn't bring in an income or we're just so miserable we can't make ends meet?
Well, what I'm hearing is from men. A lot of men say that it takes away from their self-esteem when they're not the provider, and it makes the relationship or the dynamic of the relationship completely different when the woman is the breadwinner. The man feels a little less masculine, and I'm generalizing. I do see some men who are stay-at-home dads and extremely happy and don't mind the change whatsoever, but a majority of them really have a tough time being the nurturer and staying home and having that gender switch and not knowing, who's in charge. One of the things we always say to parents when they're talking to their kids about, financial times and difficulty is, discuss who makes the financial decisions in your home. And it always used to be the man, but now it's not. Sometimes it's a partnership, but sometimes it's the woman. And that takes away a lot from the old-fashioned values we had here. And we've noticed the more that women work outside the home and be the breadwinners, we're having more trouble in our marriages. And as much as I'm a woman who works full-time, I do notice that does take away some of, the relationship and the old-fashioned values, and it makes it harder to have a relationship.
So are there tools for dealing with this?
Well, if you're going into a relationship or a marriage and you can discuss it beforehand. So that is one of the things, like I did that personally. When I was engaged, one of the things I said to my husband was, I'm always going to be working. This is who I am. It's a part of who I am. I went and got my master's. I took my licensing board. This is what I want to do. And even when I have kids, I might go, down to part-time, but I really want to stay a working mom. And I made that very clear, and I made that decision that we're going to split the household chores 50-50, and we'll decide who wants to do what. But if you're already in the marriage and you have to make those changes, then they have to be talked about. And a lot of times there's not enough communication in a relationship for it to survive. So one of the things I always suggest is really discussing the changes and finding ways that you can both cope with what the changes are. Because, again, some women can also feel kind of awkward being the breadwinner because that's not how they were raised, and they feel that the man should be the provider, and they look down at the man when he can't provide. So, it comes from both sides, the woman's side and the male side. But really having that open communication and discussing how you feel, what's making you feel this way, and how we can work together to make this relationship work with the changes is really a great step. And if that can't be done between the wife and the husband, then the best thing to do is get a mediator and go to therapy where you can discuss it out with, a third party who's non-judgmental.
Okay. We are talking with Diane Lang, who in fact is a therapist who deals with husbands and wives. She appears on TV regularly discussing it. She wrote the books Creating Balance and Finding Happiness and Baby Steps, The Path from Motherhood to Career. Diane, we've spoken in the first half of the discussion here about how husbands and wives might deal with money together, but I think one of the huge pressures as it relates to money comes from the children, where they have these huge material and financial expectations from their parents. Quite frankly, I find it surprising to see kids walking around with hugely expensive iPhones, sports shoes, whatever it is that they feel they have to have because of the peer pressure. And I'll give you my personal feeling on this, that this is just wrong, right? Kids shouldn't have this kind of thing, and they certainly shouldn't feel the pressure to own it. But how do parents deal with that?
You're completely right. We're seeing kids with iPads, iPhones. I'm seeing kids here in the States with cell phones in kindergarten and first grade, and I'm not even sure why they even have to have one at that age. But this is what we're seeing here. And we have a thing here called Keeping Up with the Joneses, and that is a huge problem. And one of the biggest reasons that we have such a big problem with finances is because we're always trying to keep up with the Joneses. Everybody has to have the same car, the same house. Everybody's got to drive a Lexus, a BMW. Their kids all have to have the best sneakers, phones. Kids have to go to the best colleges even if the parents can't afford it. And it puts us in debt and makes us feel stressed and overwhelmed. And what we need to do is realize that, one, it's okay to talk to your children about finances. A lot of times parents feel that they don't want to get their kids involved and they want to protect them. And I can respect that, but it is okay to talk to your children about finances, even of all ages. The younger ages, you definitely have to be more simple, very clear, concise, to the point, and make it almost fun. But as they get older, they can handle more. But also remember this, age does not equal maturity. We assume if a child's 13 or 16 that they can handle certain things due to their age, but an age or a number doesn't mean a child is mature. And we have to know our child. So knowing your child, you'll know how mature they are and how much they can handle. I've seen children who are much younger who can handle more than an older child. So really knowing your child and knowing how mature they are will help. So you really want to be able to discuss finances. And one of the things you want to do is make it clear that it's not their fault. Because children really will internalize it and feel that it's their fault. Oh my God, I made my mom take me to these classes, to these lessons. I'm always asking for clothes. It's my fault. And we always want to make it clear that it's not their fault. You also want to be empathetic and really imagine how your kids are feeling. Be empathetic to your kids' feelings. Put yourself in their shoes. Because even if we don't find it to be a big issue, because we're older and we know they'll get through it, it doesn't mean that they're not taking it really tough. So really make sure you're empathetic. Make it clear that it's not their fault. Also make it clear that you're working on the issue. That, reassure them that even though, you are worried about the financial future of your family, you don't want them to feel that way. So reassure your kids that everything will be okay. And also watch how you express fear. Parents will say, well, verbally I didn't express any fear. But think about your nonverbals. Because remember, kids from birth through about puberty really learn through visuals. So they learn through imitation, role modeling. They're visual learners, and they absorb like sponges when you have young kids. So if you are saying one thing but your actions are different, they will feel it, and they will pick up on that. So even if you're saying, no, everything's fine, but in your voice, your tone of your voice, your facial expressions, your gestures are showing worry and stress, they will pick up on it. So really make sure of that, and make sure that when you're home you have a positive attitude, because emotions, moods, attitudes are all contagious. So again, even if you're telling your kids, yes, everything's fine, but you're always acting stressed out and you're snapping and you're irritable and you're isolating yourself, they're going to pick up on this because all moods and emotions are contagious. So you don't want it to rub off on them. So really, those are just a few things to start off. I don't want to keep babbling to you. So I could keep going, but I didn't know if there were any specifics that you would like to discuss.
It sounds like those are very important ideas. We're beginning to run out of time, but tell me, what do you say to a kid when he says, listen, I need the iPad or iPhone 4 because everyone else has one?
Well, even if
you have the money, let's assume that you could afford it, you just don't think it's appropriate.
Well, there's a few things. One, you can actually have the kids help earn the money towards it. And that's one of the things I do. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I have what we call kind of she gets her allowance, but she earns her allowance. So for her to get any kind of iPad or something big that she wants that's not a birthday gift or a Hanukkah gift, I really want to make sure that she's earning it. So when she gets her chores, she earns money. And then also we take all our change and we collect and we put it in a jar. And over here we have a bank that actually has like a coin machine, and we'll put all the money in the machine, and she can keep like 20% of it, and the rest goes in her bank. So she's learning to earn money. She's learning how to save. And this way she can earn some of the bigger gifts that she wants when it's not a specific reason for it. If you don't have the money, what we do is, with kids is say, this is the situation we're in, and we can only do, two things. What would you rather have, the iPad, or would you rather continue in karate? Like, give them the option and let them be involved in the decision-making. So let them know, this is what I can do. Because when people have, finances that change, a lot of times the kids have to reduce their schedule and not get what they used to get. So you want the kids to still be involved. So you can say to them, you want the iPad, you want art classes, and you want to keep up karate. We can only do one. Which one do you choose? And let them be involved with the decision-making so they feel that they're involved in their choices, but let them realize this is all we can do. And it's okay for them to understand this is all we can do. It's reality. And it's okay for kids to know this is, realistic and this is what happens.
I hear. I think one of the themes of what you're saying is the importance of really letting your kids know what's going on, understanding who they are, like you were saying, understand how mature your child is and have a discussion with him at the level that he can really understand. And you yourself have to put yourself in his shoes to see what it is that he wants. And I think those are certainly good ideas, and that along with being a good role model, which as my day job is that I'm a financial advisor. I do the radio gig once a month, and once a week, and during that time, I talk to people a lot about the importance of, if you feel stressed about your portfolio, then we have to talk either about your stress or about actually changing the portfolio. And in cases, I think, where you're dealing with buying things for children, where you either can't afford it or simply don't wish to pay for it, you have to tell them, this is the reality and this is the way that our family works.
Right, and if you are going through a bad situation, I'll wrap it up in this. Tell the kids what you're doing to make the situation better. Like, you're currently looking for a job, you're collecting unemployment, the person who was not laid off is taking more hours, and always stress that the situation is temporary. Always stress that, because it is true. Even if you lost your job, your company went out of business, there's layoffs, it is a temporary situation, and it will resolve itself, and you'll work through it as a family, and that will help reassure the kids as well. And also, again, let them know the reality is there are sometimes bad situations, but they are temporary, and that we can work through everything. And that's a great lesson. It's like teaching kids the lessons of making mistakes. It's okay to make a mistake. It's a teachable, learnable moment. We'll get through it, and see for new opportunities.
Sounds like fabulous advice. Diane Lang, tell us in the last few seconds, how can people follow the work that you're doing?
They could go to my website at www.dlcounseling.com, where they can also get my books, or they can get them at barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com. and they can find out any more information right on my website. And again, thank you so much for having me.
Great. Thanks very much.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.